In this video, I'll go over some strategies you can use to maximize your conference experience. One of the most important things that you can do before you even get to the city where the conference is make plans to maximize your experience there. This starts from fairly basic things like sorting out your accommodations early. The best accommodations get booked up early, or the least expensive accommodations get booked up early. So you want to get on that pretty quickly, as soon as registration opens up, or even a little before then, because you want to be able to be close enough to engage in all of the conference activities, but not necessarily so close that you're constantly in the churn of conference goers. How important it is for you to be close to the venue, which is often a big conference center or in a hotel, or sometimes a convention center if the conference is big enough, depends on you. Some people like to be in the thick of it. Some people want to be pretty far away so they can disengage. Some folks want to be in the middle. Outside of planning for accommodations, it's also important for you to plan for other things, such as which sessions you might go to. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that you need to create an entire calendar that has like 30 sessions that you're going to go back to back to back. Don't do that. You will burn out, and you'll find that it's actually not as fun as you thought it was. Pick a couple of sessions along at least two dimensions. You're really excited to see the person who's presenting. It could be someone who's a star in your field. It could be one of your friends, or the topic. Sometimes you're not necessarily even familiar with who's presenting, but you're learning about some new innovative method or approach to doing something. And conferences are a good way to dip your toe in and see, okay, well, how is this new method, theory, etc., how are folks engaging with it? And is it something that I would like to engage with? Along the lines of getting to know folks, if there are a few folks you have in mind that you would love to meet, send them an email. One of the most important things I tell PhD students and early career folks is that academics are fairly accessible. So if you're a student and you know that someone that you admire, whose work you admire, is going to be at the conference, then reach out to them and see if they'll have time for like 15 minutes for coffee. Maybe you can have a conversation as they're walking from A to B. Knowing that you might approach them makes it more likely that they'll engage with you just a little bit longer. So take the time and reach out to folks. And if, folks don't reply right away, email again. Keep in mind that if they don't respond to your first email, give it a week, send another one, maybe give it 2 more weeks after that, send the third. And after 3, they're not going to get back to you. You should also take a few moments to familiarize yourself with the city and the venue. Get a feel for how long it takes you to go from A to B. This will help alleviate some of the anxiety if you're someone who gets anxious being in new places. But even if you aren't, it'll give you a sense of how long it'll take you to get to things. So look at maps, familiarize yourself with the city. Even if you've lived there or been there before, it's always good to refresh your memory about the location. Often PhD programs provide funding for students to go to conferences. Sort out how much, if any, funding is accessible to you as a graduate student to attend conferences. Often you'll find that there can be little pockets of money hidden in budgets that will help alleviate some of the burden of traveling to conferences. But the best thing that you can do is to ask. Before a conference even starts, there's a lot that goes into the planning stages to help make the experience better for everyone who attends. Sometimes that means planning for graduate student dinners or other early career workshops. But often these things aren't something you just walk into. They're something you apply to. So make sure that you do some planning beforehand so that you understand all of the opportunities that are there for you, and you try to maximize the likelihood of being selected to do one of these things. So it could be a workshop that's intended for more senior graduate students who are at the dissertation phase, for example, or it could simply be a dinner that's for early career researchers, or a happy hour. If you're attending a conference, chances are you're attending because you're presenting some of your work or some work from your advisor. That presentation, be it a talk or a poster session or whatever other format your field tends to engage in, requires you to practice just a little bit. Now, that could mean a couple of things. It could mean that you write down the entire presentation, or it could mean that you have some talking points that serve as anchors for you to sort of latch onto and then riff on. Whatever your strategy is, make sure that you practice that strategy so that you can execute it to the highest level. I will say, however, that reading a presentation isn't always as engaging, even if you write it really well. Totally written presentations can feel a little stilted from the perspective of an audience member. Now, if that's you, all the power to you, but just keep in mind that it's not always the best format these days. Another thing you should consider practicing is your elevator pitch, or your elevator speech as we call it. And the reason we call it that is because basically the idea is if you were to walk into an elevator on the first floor, let's say it's going to the 10th floor, and you happen to come across someone that you really respect in the field, and they ask you the question, so what are you working on? That gives you about 20 to 30 seconds. You should understand your work well enough to communicate it to someone who is completely unfamiliar with it. The more you practice it with other peers, with your advisor, with other faculty, the more likely it is for it to feel automatic so that you know exactly the beats that you have to hit during the limited time you might have with someone. During the conference, you should obviously attend sessions. That doesn't mean all of the sessions though. Now, everyone sort of has their own conference experience, and some people just love sessions. I don't. Not all of them. I like some of them, to be honest. However, I find that the best time I have at conferences isn't necessarily in sessions. It's in the conversations before, after, and during receptions. Don't pack your schedule with sessions because you'll find that you might actually burn out just a little bit, and you need that energy to maximize your time attending other things that are a little bit more social and a little bit more engaging. Attend receptions, attend lunches, attend any gathering where it's structured enough to get people there, but unstructured enough where there's room for serendipity. You want to be able to just meet someone over a drink, over food, and just have an engaging conversation with them. One of the most important things you can do is to network. And I understand that academics in particular feel sometimes slimy when they're thinking about networking. I'll cover that in another video at some point because networking is essential. But for now, let's just assume that you're okay with networking. It's important for you to find these opportunities for you to engage with others who are not simply members of your own academic community or members of your university. So get to know other people. So approach the faculty who you would like to talk to from other institutions. Get to know them. Don't be a stranger. If you're a little bit shy, ask to be introduced. That's one of the easiest ways to basically get over that hump of feeling anxious about approaching someone. If you don't have to approach them because someone else is introducing you, all the better. Now, some faculty and advisors are very good at doing this for their graduate students, others not so much. So either way though, you should ask. Now that introduction might not be amazing. It might simply be, hey, here's my graduate student. But that's enough. That's enough for you to start talking about your work and start getting to know the person that you might not have approached otherwise. During the conference, you should engage the work of others. You can do it a lot of different ways. You can ask questions during sessions. You can ask questions after sessions. You can ask questions during receptions. Notice what I've said is you're asking questions. Find time to get to know the work of others and try to not always dominate the conversation with your work, because we've all been in that conversation with someone who is so in love with their work that is all they can talk about, and they will listen to you only insofar as it lets them continue to talk about their work. Don't be that person, because often you'll find that if you're the person that's dominating the conversation, folks won't want to engage with you. But more importantly, you're not engaging with others, and you're not getting to know their work and seeing how their work might actually inform your work. That's the entire point of conferences, is to get together and discuss work that might actually inspire you to do something different or have a different perspective on what you're doing. That doesn't mean, however, that every single conversation has to be about work. You should actually leave some room to get to know the person behind the work. Arguing. Conferences aren't for arguing with someone else who disagrees with your perspective. They're for fruitful discussion, and you might disagree on a point, but you shouldn't argue about it, especially publicly. You shouldn't get into a back and forth during a session with someone who says something and you disagree with it and there's this tit for tat. If there's a sticking point in something that someone says, 100% if you want to approach them after and have a discussion, do that, but don't let it edge into arguing about it, because you'll find that you'll simply just not have a good time. It's not going to make the relationship any stronger. And frankly, you're not going to convince each other of your points. So you're really just wasting your time. So don't do that. Find ways to not argue and instead find ways to engage with work. Related to this is not starting drama. Drama is an umbrella term. Drama means all kinds of different things for all kinds of different people, but chances are you know what it means for you and your field and your cohort. So don't start drama, right? Keep things professional. Find ways to, disagree productively. Drama is a distraction. So whatever drama means for you, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to the work, find ways to avoid it and find ways to avoid people who like to start it because that sort of sucks the energy out of a conference. Another pitfall is to only hang out with and attend conferences with people within your university. Now, once you're at the conference, you don't have to only hang out with people from your university. In fact, I would discourage you from only spending time with people from your university. Conferences are intended for you to expand your network, expand the relationships. So take advantage of that. If it's your first conference, I totally understand going together as a cohort or with someone who you're close with. But after a while, year over year, you'll find that conferences feel like a little bit of a reunion, especially if you do the legwork to get to know other people. And that's how collaborations sometimes organically form around the work. But sometimes it doesn't necessarily have to be about collaborating on a project. It could just be you got to know someone and you made a friend. And now every year you get to see them. And that's nice. But these are just my opinions. What do you think? What are some strategies that have helped you? Write it down in the comments so that other people can learn from you.